Hello everybody. So this is our continuation of F5 LTM. So we have already covered three sessions. So this is the fourth session. So this session is about the VLAN and self IP, and we'll configure our backend server. Okay. So whatever you are able to see like server one, server two, server three. So these are the router basically. I'm going to configure HTTP on that router, so it will act as a HTTP server. And in going forward, I will use the actual Windows server, and we can use some dummy website, or I will install like internet information services on that server, and that is enough for the testings. This is also enough for the testings. But if you want like more visual kinds of things, then that is also good things. Okay. So let me first configure, this server one, server two, server three. So for all the server, gateway will be 192.168.1.1.100. That is our, we can say like inside interface of the F5 LTMs. Ethernet, we can say like interface once 1.2. So in big IP, we can say like LTM, there are some naming convention, how we can, use the port names. So basically they represent from the dot, slot, and the port numbers. Okay. So 1.1, so 1.1 means one is the slot and one is the port number, and 1.2 means one is the slot and two is the port number. So after dot it is port number, and before that it is slot. Okay, so this is how naming convention is there in FIPL. Okay, so 1.1 is the part of LAN, and 1.2 is the part of WAN. Okay, so for all the server, default gateway will be our 1.1 IP address 192.168.1.100, and for the outside people, the gateway will be like 2.1.100. Okay, in company it may be different, because in company there is a big infra, big design. So this is lab setup, lab environment, so that is fine, right? So I am on the server one, so let's configure it. And same thing on the server two, and same thing on the server three. Okay, so we need to go on the configuration terminal, guys. And first we need the host name, right? First we need to change the host name. Host name is like, this is the server one. Okay, so host name has been done. Then we need to configure the IP address. Then we need to go on the interface, and what is the interface? 0 by 0, fast ethernet 0 by 0. Okay, 0 by 0, and IP address is like 192.168.1.1, and subnet mask 255.255.255.0, and then we can put node start. Yeah, can exit it, do show history. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll copy this on the notepad, guys, and we don't need to type every time. So we have done on the server one, and for server to host name will be the server two, and we need to run this command in the config t, and interface. Let me cross check the interface. Fast Ethernet 0 by 0, 0 by 0 itself. So interface is same, IP address will be 2, and no start. Okay, and same things we need to do in the. So this is how we can do fast, guys, in the production also, and this is recommended also. So this is server 3, and we can put IP address, you can give 3, no start. Okay, so now copy it, and then we need to go on the server 2, and then enable config, then right click, paste it, done. Okay, Then we can save the configurations. Do right. Same things we need to do on the server 3. Okay. Then we need to copy this command and paste here. That's it. So this is how we can do fast, guys. So interface configuration is done on the server 1, server 2, server 3. Now we need to enable HTTP on all 3 server, and then we need to create some username password so that when people from outside try to hit our virtual IP, it will be redirected. We can select it will load balance towards all the amongst 3 server, and it will be prompt for the username password. Okay. So go on the server 1, guys. Go on the configuration terminals, IP HTTP server. This is the command to enables, and IP HTTP authentication local for the locally authentication. Username we can put admin. Password we can put 123, or this way username this. Privilege we can put 15. Password 123. That's it. Can run the command show history. Okay. So we have enabled the HTTP server on the server 1. Now we need one default route, guys. For this server, what is the default route? 1.100. So any traffic, it will going to send to the this interface IP address. Inside interface IP address of the F5 LTM 192.168.1.100. So we need to configure one default route. Okay, so go on the configuration terminals, then IP route. I'm showing all the things, guys, so that we guys get more familiar things, and same things we can practice in your lab also. IP route for any traffic unknown destinations. One 192.168.1.100. Okay. Okay, so on server 1, we have been able, we have done the IP configuration, enable the HTTP, we have configured the default route. We need to do same things on the server 2 also. So IP HTTP server, then IP HTTP authentication local. I'm doing a little bit fast, guys, because I have already show you. So I'm admin, privilege 15, password 123, so that our session will know much longer. And then um, exit. And then we can give the IP route. One 192.168.1.100. That's it. So we are done with server 2. Now we need to do on the server 3 also. IP HTTP server and IP HTTP authentication local. Username admin, privilege 15, password 123. And we can configure the default route, IP route, 192.168.1.100. If you run this command, guys, IP route, we have the default route towards our inside interface of the FFL team. Okay. So server configuration has been done. We have configured the IP address. We have enabled the HTTP server. We have configured the default route. So server part has been done. Okay. Now we need to come on the F5 to configure the VLAN and the self IP. Okay. So before configuring it, I want to show some things related to VLAN. So I know very well everybody aware about the VLAN part. So what is the VLAN? So VLAN is basically we isolate our networks. Okay, so for in this scenario, we have, for example, inside, outside, internal VLAN or external VLAN. So VLAN is used for the security purpose, and basically we isolate our networks so that it will not conflicts and avoid the conflict in the company. Okay. So I'm not going to go in depth in VLAN parts because you already know what is VLAN. Okay. So we need to keep in mind one thing in F5 LTM, guys. In F5 LTM, we can't configure directly IP address. Okay, this is how F5 LTM is designed. First, we need to configure the VLAN part, like internal VLAN, external VLAN. Then we need to put our port inside that VLAN, and then we need to assign the IP on the basis of VLAN. Okay, so this is how F5 LTM is designed. Let me show you. So if you go on the VLAN, then for example, we have configured some VLAN and we are putting the interfaces for internal in our lab case. What is in internal VLAN? We'll put the interface 1.1, and for external VLAN, we can use the interface 1.2. Okay, so we can't directly assign IP address without creating VLAN. First approach to create VLAN, put that interface inside the VLAN, and then go on the self IP and configure the IP on the basis of VLAN. So this is how F5 ultimate design. Okay. So first we'll configure the VLAN, guys. Okay. So first we need to create the VLAN and then associate physical interface to the VLAN and then assign the self IP address on the basis of VLAN. Then it is going to be reflect the IP address. So this is how F5LTM designs. And there are two important terms while creating VLAN in F5LTM is that is tagged and untagged. So I'm going to give some short informations about tagged and untagged, guys. So tagged means it's kinds of trunk port. So trunk port is going to carry multiple VLAN traffic. Untagged port means it's kinds of access port. So like in switch, you generally configure some port like interface 1 is the part of VLAN 10, interface 2 is the part of VLAN 20. So that will comes under untagged. Okay. So this is the difference between tagged and untagged. Okay. So just remember one thing. In F5 LTM, we can't directly configure IP address without creating VLAN. So first we need to create the VLAN. Okay. So come to the F5. So this is our F5 box, guys. Let me log in it. Okay. Okay, so license part already I have shown you yesterday. So we need to go on the VLAN, guys, and we need to create two VLAN first. First, two VLAN. So in our case, internal VLAN and external VLAN. So create name. We'll give the name like internal VLAN, and 1.1 is the part of internal VLAN. So we need to select like tagging. We use untagged because we are not using as a trunk port. We are using as access port. We need to add it. Okay. So in internal VLAN, 1.1 is the part of internal VLAN. We don't need to do anything rest. Okay. Then we'll repeat it because we need to configure one more VLAN, that is external VLAN, and 1.2 interface is the part of external VLAN. So we click repeat here and we can give name here external VLAN, and this is also untagged because we are not going to use as a trunk port. We are using as a access port. Okay. Then we need to finish. So we have configured two VLAN, guys, internal VLAN and external VLANs. So internal VLAN is the part of 1.1. We can say like 1.1 interface is the part of internal VLAN and 1.2 interface is the part of external VLANs. Okay. Now we need to come on the self IP. And now here we can create and we can give like internal self IP. So self IP basically, guys, the actual IP where we configure on the interface. So maybe this questions asked in the interview because when I was giving interview for the F5 team SME level of interview, so they generally ask about difference between like self IP and floating IP. I have cracked so many LTM SME level interview also. So they ask the difference between self IP and floating IP. So we'll discuss floating IP more when we'll cover the HA part, when we'll come to the HA part. Okay. So self IP basically the IP where we configure on the interface. So we can select whatever the IP address of the physical interface, that is called self IP. Floating IP is a virtual IP. It's used in kinds of HA, similar like in like HSRP, VRRP, similar we do in the checkpoint and Palo Alto. So self IP is the actual IP address which is belong to the actual interface. That is physical interface IP address. And floating IP is the virtual IP address, guys. Okay. I hope you guys know the difference between self IP and floating IP. We'll discuss floating IP more when we'll come to the our HA part. Okay. So that is internal self. I can give the name like IP, and we can give like 192.168.1.100, and we can give like subnet mask slash 25. Okay. And this will be the part of internal VLAN. Okay. Port lockdown, guys, we'll discuss in depth later. So port lockdown, like which port, which services, which protocol you want to allow on that port. Okay. If you want to allow like allow all like HTTP, HTTPS or other stuffs. So in company generally, we generally don't allow much things on the self IP. We can select self interface. We can select actual interface. We don't allow much things because it is not recommended. We allow something like HTTP SSH, HTTPS and SSH on our management interface, not the actual data interface where traffic is carrying. Okay. So port lockdown is like which types of access you want to allow on that port. Okay. If you allow all, we can do SSH, we can do HTTPS of our F5 LTM devices on the basis of our self IP also, like internal self IP or external self IP. Okay. So this is kinds of management control, management access kinds of things. Okay. So at the moment we can use allow none. And this is the part of traffic group local only, means this is the part of self IP, actual IP of the interface. Okay. Non-floating IP address. Okay. So we have configured our interface 1.1. Okay. IP address 1.1, that is fine. Then we need to repeat it and we'll configure our one external self IP, and we can give the IP address 192.168.2.100 as per our topology. So 192.168.2.100 subnet mask, that is fine. This will be the part of external VLAN. And port lockdown, I'm not going to allow anything. Also, it is not recommended because we are already accessing our F5 LTM with the help of management interface, right? So we don't need to allow like HTTPS, SSH, or other protocols on the our internal interface and external interface. Okay. Then we need to finish it. Okay. So now see, here it is showing the IP address. So 1.2 is the part of external VLAN and 1.1 is the part of internal VLAN, and accordingly we have assigned the IP address, configure the IP address. So guys, it is very, very important to first create VLAN, and then inside VLAN we can assign the IP address. We can't directly assign IP address on the interface. This is how a pipe LTM is designed. Okay. So that's it, guys. So this session is about configuring our backend web server, VLAN, and self IP. Okay. In upcoming session, we'll do our rest part as per our content, as per our agenda. So I hope this video is informative and knowledgeable for you guys. So if you like my efforts, please share, like, subscribe as much as possible. This series is completely free. We don't need to pay anything, and I'm going to upload all the things on my channels. I have created one F5 LTM playlist. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for watching and thanks for your time. Let's meet on the next session. Thank you very much.